Rare coin collecting. Discover real value and history in every coin.
The 1912 barber dime may look like an ordinary piece of silver to the untrained eye, but to collectors, it represents the twilight of a remarkable era in American coinage. Struck more than a century ago, this dime carries with it the legacy of a design that defined U.S. currency for nearly a quarter of a century, and a moment in time just before the nation embraced a bold new artistic direction. The barber dime was designed by Charles E. Barber, chief engraver of the U.S. Mint, whose initials B appear discreetly on Liberty's neck. Introduced in 1892, the Barber series, which included dimes, quarters, and half dollars, was meant to replace the long-running seated Liberty designs. By 1912, this classic motif was nearing its end, and only a few years later, in 1916, the Mercury dime would take its place. That makes the 1912 issue one of the final and most collectible of the Barber dime family. The obverse presents a timeless portrait of Lady Liberty facing right, crowned with a laurel wreath and wearing a small cap, a nod to ancient Roman symbolism of honor and achievement. Around her are the words, United States of America, while the date 1912 sits just below the neckline. The artistry, though subtle, captures the strength and unity of the early 1900s American spirit. The reverse design is simple yet deeply symbolic. A wreath composed of agricultural plants such as corn, wheat, oak, and maple leaves, all tied together with a bow. Within this wreath sits the denomination, 1 dime. Just beneath it, collectors can find the mint mark if present, either a D for Denver, an S for San Francisco, or blank for the Philadelphia Mint. The 1912 barber dime was struck at 3 U.S. mints. Philadelphia, no mint mark, about 19 million coins. Denver, D, roughly 11 million coins. San Francisco, S, just 3.4 million coins. While all 3 mints produced strong quantities, the 1912 S is the clear standout for rarity and value today, particularly in high mint state grades. In circulated grades, the 1912 barber dime is accessible to most collectors. A typical worn coin ranges from $5 to $15, while nicely detailed examples with readable Liberty on the headband can bring $30 to $60. In about uncirculated AU condition, these coins can reach $100 to $150, depending on mint mark and eye appeal. Once you cross into mint state MS territory, the 1912 dime begins to shine in value, literally and figuratively. A 1912 Philadelphia dime graded MS 65 can sell for around $350 to $500. The 1912 D in the same grade averages $600 to $900 due to its lower survival rate. The 1912 S, however, takes the spotlight. A true semi-key date that commands $2,000 to $3,000 in MS 65, and record sales above $10,000 for MS 67 examples. In fact, a spectacular 1912 S barber dime graded MS 67 by PCGS sold at auction for over $12,600, showing the fierce competition among collectors for pristine final-year San Francisco strikes. Beyond condition rarity, the 1912 issue occasionally appears with minor mint errors, such as off-center strikes, die cracks, or clipped planchets. These errors, though uncommon, can range from $200 to $700, depending on visibility and overall coin quality. Historically, the year 1912 marked the final years before America's entry into World War I and the end of an artistic chapter in U.S. coinage. The public, and President Theodore Roosevelt, had begun demanding more beauty and symbolism in the nation's coin designs, a movement that would soon introduce the Mercury dime and walking Liberty half dollar. The 1912 barber dime therefore represents the last full production year before the series' graceful exit, making it historically and emotionally significant. Collectors today appreciate the 1912 issue for its balance between affordability and legacy. It's one of the best entry points into barber silver for new hobbyists, yet also offers high-grade scarcity and investment potential for advanced numismatists. When inspecting one, pay close attention to the details in Liberty's hair and the laurel wreath. Those are the first high points to wear and the key to determining grade. Original mint luster, clean fields, and a full, even strike can dramatically raise value, especially for the San Francisco issue. The 1912 barber dime is more than a piece of silver. It's the closing verse of an American classic. From the bustling streets of San Francisco to the busy presses in Philadelphia, these coins witnessed a nation stepping confidently into modernity. Whether you hold one worn smooth from countless exchanges or a sparkling gem that escaped circulation, you're holding the end of an era, a tangible connection to America's early 20th century identity. So, the next time you see a barber dime dated 1912, flip it over and look for that tiny mint mark. If you're lucky enough to spot an S, you might just be holding a small but powerful piece of numismatic history. The 1901 barber dime is more than a century old, yet it continues to captivate coin collectors with its blend of historical charm, classical design, and hidden rarity. At first glance, it may seem like a small piece of silver from a bygone era, but those who understand its legacy know this coin stands at the intersection of American artistry and industrial progress. The barber dime was the creation of Charles E. Barber, chief engraver of the U.S. Mint, from 1879 to 1917. Introduced in 1892, the design replaced the long-running Seated Liberty series, which had become outdated and worn after more than 50 years of use. Barber's design brought a cleaner, stronger look, something that reflected the confident and modern America of the early 1900s. On the obverse, Lady Liberty faces right, wearing a laurel wreath, a classical emblem of victory and honor. Her cap, tied with a small ribbon inscribed Liberty, is the focal point for graders. When the letters remain fully visible, the coin earns higher marks. Around the portrait are the words, United States of America, and the date, 1901, lies beneath her neckline. The reverse continues Barber's balance of elegance and simplicity. A wreath made up of corn, wheat, oak, and maple leaves encircles the denomination, 1 dime. Tucked just below the wreath lies the mint mark, identifying where the coin was struck. It's a small detail that makes a big difference, because in 1901, that mint mark could mean the difference between a common collectible and a national treasure. The 1901 barber dime was struck at 3 different mints. Philadelphia, no mint mark, about 18.9 million minted. San Francisco, S, around 5.8 million minted. New Orleans, O, a mere 440,000 minted. That last number is what makes the 1901 O barber dime one of the great rarities of American coinage. With fewer than 500,000 produced and even fewer surviving in decent condition, it's a legendary key date that can command prices in the thousands. In circulated grades, a 1901 dime from Philadelphia or San Francisco is generally affordable, usually worth $6 to $20. Better examples showing clear details on Liberty's headband might bring $30 to $70. In about uncirculated AU condition, prices jump to $150 to $300, especially for the scarcer mint marks. But the story changes dramatically for the 1901 O. Even a heavily worn 1901 O barber dime can sell for $250 to $500. Well-detailed fine to very fine examples often reach $1,000 or more, and coins approaching extremely fine can exceed $2,500. Uncirculated pieces are almost mythical. A 1901 O graded MS-65 by PCGS once sold for over $25,000, and a spectacular MS-66 example brought an astonishing $40,250 at auction. The 1901 S also holds interest, particularly in high grades. While not as rare as the New Orleans issue, sharply struck San Francisco examples with full detail can surpass $1,000 in gem condition. Collectors pay close attention to strike quality, especially in Liberty's hair and the bow on the reverse. The New Orleans Mint, known for softer strikes, often produced coins with less defined detail, which makes well-struck 1901 O examples extremely desirable. As for mint errors, few have been documented, but some exist, including off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and die cracks, typically fetching $300 to $800, depending on visibility and grade. Historically, 1901 was a fascinating year in America. The country was expanding industrially, cities were growing, and President William McKinley's tragic assassination that year marked a shift in national identity. Coins like the barber dime circulated through a rapidly modernizing nation, one stepping boldly into the 20th century. The silver in your hand might once have bought a loaf of bread or a morning newspaper. For collectors today, the 1901 barber dime represents both accessibility and aspiration. The Philadelphia and San Francisco issues are ideal for completing sets or introducing new hobbyists to classic U.S. silver. The 1901 O, on the other hand, remains a crown jewel, a coin that can transform an ordinary collection into something extraordinary. Each barber dime tells its own story. The shine of an uncirculated specimen, the soft wear of a circulated one. Both reflect history's passage in silver form. More than 120 years later, the 1901 dime still echoes the craftsmanship and pride of its era. So, when you come across a barber dime dated 1901, don't overlook the mint mark beneath the wreath. If you see that small O, you might be holding one of the rarest and most valuable dimes ever struck by the United States Mint. A tiny circle of silver, carrying history, beauty, and fortune in the palm of your hand. The 1920 Mercury dime is a beautiful relic from America's post-World War I era, a time of optimism, recovery, and change. Though small in size, this silver dime carries a story of national rebirth and artistic excellence that continues to capture the hearts of collectors over a century later. Struck in 90% silver and 10% copper, the Mercury dime belongs to one of the most beloved series in U.S. coinage. Officially known as the Winged Liberty Head dime, it was designed by the celebrated sculptor Adolph A. Weinman, whose initials AW can be found at the lower right of Liberty's neck. First introduced in 1916, the design replaced Charles Barber's dime, a transition that symbolized America's artistic awakening of the early 20th century. The obverse features a youthful Liberty wearing a winged cap, symbolizing freedom of thought. For decades, people mistook this image for the Roman god Mercury, hence the nickname Mercury dime. Around her portrait are the inscriptions Liberty and In God We Trust, with the date 1920 positioned below her neckline. On the reverse, a Roman fasces, a bundle of rods tied together with an axe, represents strength and unity, while an olive branch wrapped around it symbolizes peace. Together, they reflect America's post-war spirit, powerful, yet yearning for harmony. The motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one, runs beside the design, and the denomination, one dime, rests at the bottom. Now let's talk about where these coins were struck. In 1920, Mercury dimes were minted at 3 locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark, about 59 million pieces; Denver, D, around 19 million pieces; San Francisco, S, just 13.8 million pieces. At first glance, those mintages seem high, but over a century of circulation, melting, and loss has made fully detailed, problem-free examples increasingly rare. The 1920S, in particular, often suffers from weak strikes and heavy wear, making high-grade survivors quite valuable. In average circulated condition, a 1920 dime from Philadelphia might sell for $4 to $8, while a Denver example can bring $10 to $20. The San Francisco issue starts around $15 and quickly rises from there. When you move into high-grade territory, the numbers begin to climb dramatically. In extremely fine XF condition, the 1920D can reach $50 to $100, while the tougher 1920S may sell for $150 to $300. Collectors prize coins showing full bands, meaning the horizontal bands on the fasces are fully separated and sharp. This tiny detail makes a world of difference in the coin market. For example, A 1920 Mercury dime with full bands graded MS-65 can easily exceed $2,000. In MS-66 or higher, the price can skyrocket. One such coin sold at auction for more than $7,500, proving that strike quality and eye appeal can turn an ordinary dime into a prized rarity. Even the 1920D and 1920 Philadelphia issues become significant in top grades. MS-66 examples with strong luster and full bands often realize $1,200 to $1,800 at auction. The finest known pieces, certified MS-67 FB, have achieved records above $5,000. Collectors also enjoy finding error varieties from this year, such as off-center strikes, doubled dies, and clipped planchets. These errors are not common, but can command $200 to $1,000 or more, depending on visibility and condition. Historically, 1920 marked a period of great change in the United States. The country was recovering from World War I, entering the Roaring Twenties, a decade of innovation, jazz, and prosperity. The Mercury dime reflected that energy, bold, modern, and full of movement. Its clean, sculptural design symbolized both strength and liberty, ideals that resonated deeply with a nation stepping confidently into a new era. Today, more than 100 years later, the 1920 Mercury dime remains a cornerstone of American numismatics. Its beauty, silver content, and historical importance make it a must-have for any serious collection. Whether found in a dealer's case or a family coin jar, each example connects us to a moment when art and freedom were minted in silver. So, next time you come across a 1920 Mercury dime, take a close look. Check the back for that tiny D or S mint mark, and examine those horizontal bands across the fasces. You might just be holding a century-old masterpiece that's worth far more than 10 cents. In the end, the 1920 Mercury dime is more than just a coin. It's a story frozen in silver, a reminder that even the smallest pieces of metal can carry the spirit of an era, the vision of an artist, and the enduring beauty of American history. The 1903 Barber dime might appear like just another small piece of silver, but beneath its modest surface lies a story of rarity, Southern minting history, and unexpected collector demand. Struck over 120 years ago at the New Orleans Mint, this dime reflects both America's industrial spirit and the final chapters of one of its most iconic mints. The Barber Dime series, designed by Charles E. Barber, debuted in 1892 and carried through until 1916. Barber, the U.S. Mint's chief engraver, was known for designs emphasizing clarity, strength, and symmetry. His work defined U.S. coinage at the turn of the century. By 1903, the Barber design had already become a familiar face in every American pocket. But coins from certain mints, like New Orleans, would prove far more elusive to future collectors. The obverse features a dignified portrait of Lady Liberty, facing right, wearing a laurel wreath and a ribbon inscribed with Liberty. Around her appear United States of America, and the date, 1903, rests neatly below her neckline. This portrait, while simple, captures the neoclassical spirit of the time, strength and unity through restrained elegance. The reverse shows a beautiful agricultural wreath of corn, wheat, oak, and maple leaves tied together with a ribbon, enclosing the denomination, 1 dime. Beneath the wreath lies the small O mint mark, denoting the New Orleans Mint, a detail that turns a common dime into a collectible prize. In 1903, the New Orleans Mint struck about 8.18 million Barber dimes. While that might sound like a lot, the survival rate in high grades is surprisingly low. The humid southern climate, along with heavy circulation, left few coins with sharp details or original luster. Today, well-preserved 1903 O dimes are prized because of how few survived unscathed. In circulated condition, most 1903 O dimes range from $6 to $25, depending on wear. Those showing moderate detail with readable Liberty on the headband, the hallmark of higher circulated grades, can reach $40 to $75. Once you enter About uncirculated AU territory, prices rise dramatically, often crossing $150 to $250. Uncirculated examples are scarce. A 19030 in Mint State 63, MS 63, may sell between $400 and $700, while an MS 65 gem can easily reach $1,500 to $2,000. At the elite end of the spectrum, a few superbly struck coins graded MS 67 have achieved record prices, with one auctioned by Heritage Auctions selling for over $9,300. What makes these top-grade examples so rare is strike quality. The New Orleans Mint was known for soft strikes on dimes, often showing weak details in Liberty's hair and on the bow of the reverse wreath. Finding a coin with full definition and bright luster is a true challenge, and collectors pay a premium for such perfection. Error enthusiasts also find excitement in this issue. A handful of off-center strikes, die cracks, and clipped planchets have surfaced from the 19030 production run. These visually appealing mint errors range from $250 to $900, depending on how dramatic and clear the error appears. The year 1903 holds special historical significance as well. America was rising as an industrial power, and the New Orleans Mint was nearing the end of its historic coinage role. Just 1 year later, in 1904, the Mint would produce its last official coins before closing permanently in 1909. Every 19030 barber dime, therefore, represents one of the final chapters of New Orleans coinage history. Silver born from a city that once fueled America's southern economy. Collectors view the 19030 barber dime as both accessible and rewarding. It's not as rare as the legendary 18950 or 1896S, yet it remains significantly scarcer than many Philadelphia issues. For that reason, it's an essential addition to a complete barber dime set, especially for those who appreciate coins that combine history, artistry, and subtle rarity. When evaluating one, pay close attention to Liberty's hairlines and the bow on the reverse. Those are the key points of wear and strike quality. Luster, rim integrity, and toning can all dramatically affect value. Certified coins from PCGS or NGC are highly recommended to ensure authenticity and accurate grading. In the end, the 19030 barber dime stands as more than a piece of silver. It's a small survivor from a fading southern mint, a tangible artifact of American resilience. Each example carries whispers of New Orleans' minting legacy, preserved through decades of collectors' hands. So, if you find one in a coin box or inherited collection, look closely under the wreath for that little O. It might be faint, but that small mark links your coin to one of the most storied mints in U.S. history, and possibly to a hidden treasure worth thousands. The 1911 barber dime may look like a simple silver coin from the early 1900s, but its legacy is far from ordinary. Hidden in this tiny 10-cent piece is the end of an era, a coin that represents the closing chapter of 19th-century American coin design. For collectors, it's not just a dime, it's a symbol of tradition, transition, and timeless craftsmanship. And if you find one in high grade, you might be holding a piece worth far more than its face value. The barber dime was first introduced in 1892, designed by Charles E. Barber, the chief engraver of the U.S. Mint. His initials, a small B tucked beneath Liberty's neck, can still be seen on well-preserved examples. The design was part of a new coinage series that replaced the long-running seated Liberty design, which had been used for over half a century. By 1911, America was evolving rapidly. Airplanes were in the sky, automobiles were on the streets, and the world was inching toward modernity. Yet the barber dime remained a steadfast part of daily commerce, linking the nation's industrial growth with a design rooted in classical beauty. The obverse shows Liberty facing right, crowned with a wreath of laurel leaves and inscribed with Liberty. Surrounding her are the words, United States of America, and the date 1911 at the bottom. The detail in her hair, the sharpness of the wreath, and the clarity of the date are crucial for grading. Areas that often show wear first. On the reverse, a simple but elegant wreath of corn, wheat, oak, and maple leaves surrounds the denomination. 1 dime. The design reflects American agriculture and unity, a tribute to the land that sustained the country's growth. Mint marks, when present, appear below the wreath's bow. The 1911 barber dime was minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D; and San Francisco, S. The Philadelphia Mint struck about 18.9 million coins, making it the most common of the 3. The Denver Mint produced around 11.3 million, while the San Francisco Mint had the lowest output with only 5.5 million coins. And that's where things get interesting. The 1911 S barber dime is notably scarcer in mint state condition, making it the prize among the 3 for serious collectors. In circulated grades, 1911 barber dimes typically range from $5 to $15, depending on wear and silver content. However, once you enter the extremely fine XF and about uncirculated AU grades, prices rise sharply, especially for the San Francisco issue. A clean, lightly worn 1911 S dime can bring $75 to $150. When it comes to mint state coins, the values climb even higher. A 1911 Philadelphia dime in MS 65 can sell for $300 to $500, while a 1911 D in the same grade may bring $700 to $900. The 1911 S barber dime, however, stands out. In MS 65, it can reach $1,800 to $2,200, and coins with brilliant luster or rainbow toning can exceed those numbers easily. One of the most impressive auction results came from a 1911 S barber dime graded MS 67 by PCGS, which realized $9,600 at a heritage auction. Another near-perfect 1911 DMS 67 example sold for $7,800, underscoring how condition and strike quality make all the difference for collectors seeking the finest known survivors. There are no major die varieties for the 1911 barber dime, but collectors still search for small mint mark repunches, die cracks, or strike-through errors, minor imperfections that can add character and extra value. Typical errors or off-center strikes can bring $150 to $400, while more dramatic ones, such as clipped planchets or double strikes, can reach $700 or more depending on visual appeal. Historically, the 1911 barber dime represents the final stretch of the Barber series. Only one more year, 1912, would follow before the design was replaced in 1916 by Adolph Weinmann's winged Liberty head, better known as the Mercury dime. Because of this, the 1911 issues often serve as a bridge between 2 iconic design eras: the classical 19th century and the artistic, forward-looking 20th century. The coin also circulated during an interesting economic time. America was booming industrially, yet silver coins remained essential for everyday transactions. The barber dime was the working man's coin, found in factory pay, farmers' hands, and shop registers across the nation. That heavy circulation is precisely why finding a high-grade survivor today is so rewarding. For collectors, owning a 1911 barber dime is about more than silver value. It's a direct connection to over a century of American progress, a relic of a time when craftsmanship defined every design. Whether you own a simple circulated piece or a gem mint state coin, it embodies both history and artistry. If you ever come across a 1911 barber dime, especially one with full details, sharp rims, and natural toning, take a close look. What seems like a small silver coin could be worth a significant amount.